Hello, welcome to Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee call-in meeting. The date is the 6th of October and we are live. Firstly, item 1, do we have any apologies, Mandy?
No apologies, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any further apologies? No? Right, thank you. Declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? No? All right. Item 3, consideration of called-in decision, political assistant appointments. The purpose of today's meeting is to consider a decision made by the Cabinet meeting held on the 17th of September 2025, which has been called in. The decision in question relates to the appointment of political assistants. The report states that funding be approved from the Corporate Contingency Fund to these two posts at the maximum fund level £142,010, with the cost to be built in the NTFS moving forward. For everyone's information and for those watching online, the structure of the item is as follows. The lead member from the group who called in the decision will speak for 5 minutes, outlining the reasons for the call-in. The chairman of the relevant committee will have 5 minutes to speak on the issue. Following that, the cabinet member and any supporting office will have 5 minutes to respond and explain the decision. And finally, the committee itself would deliberate, ask questions and decide on the most appropriate course of action. And this can be A, agree for the decision to be implemented as set out in the original decision notice. B, refer the matter onto the Cabinet with specific issues for Cabinet to consider. And C, refer the matter onto full Council should the impact of the decision be deemed to have exceptional significance to public support. So, to start the process, I'll invite Councillor Greatrix, the nominated lead member, to begin by explaining why the decision was called in.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm here speaking on behalf of, you'll see 11 members who've called us in. And first of all, I want to say that I do know what the problem is. From a reform point of view, I recognise that you don't know what you don't know. Newly into office and newly into responsibility, you can't possibly know what it is that you need to know more about to be productive and functional. So what I thought would be useful would be to take you back a year. So if you imagine the situation a year ago, we've just come off the summer, and a year ago we'd have had the Conservatives in control with a large group of Labour in minority, similar to today. And the summer would have been useful in that members would come away and think, these are the sort of things that we want to have put into new policy. And we'd had that welcome from the backbenchers, and those people would contribute ideas. Now, what this proposal is to say that we don't think that contribution is going to be there, so we need some assistance from outside. Similarly, we're about to kick off the MTFS process, which I'm very familiar with, having been in Councillor Baker's position. And the MTFS is very useful because you get the contributions of not just your own people, but the contributions of the opposition members. And you do get contributions from the opposition because they want to be helpful. They want to be able to contribute ideas that they're not able to put into place themselves. So this proposal does away with that contribution as well. It almost says, we don't think that's valuable. We want assistance from outside. And lastly, in terms of this time last year, we would have been speaking very closely with the officers, some of whom are in this room, who would be trying to put together the budget for next year and saying what can and can't happen, what's possible in the way of savings, what changes to service levels can and can't be achieved. And I'm not sure what the relationship you have with the officers is, but they should not be regarded as the enemy, they should be regarded as friends within, because they will quite openly support whatever policy you've democratically decided and follow through, and that's their role. They will implement decisions that have been taken democratically. So this proposal is to look at another approach, which is to have consultants, one or two. I mean, the Conservative group have declined the offer. But basically, you're looking at getting a consultant or two in. And my favourite definition of a consultant is somebody who will borrow your watch to tell you the time. So you're only as good as the brief that you're going to give to the consultants. If you're not able to say to the consultants, this is what we want out of your employment, then they're not going to achieve what you think they're going to. And I come back to the fact that you're only as good as that brief. So if you've set people off in the wrong direction, you'll get the answers to the wrong questions. The timing's not good on this either. Again, if you look at this, here we are in early October, for this person to be in place, interviewed, appointed, and to give notice, it's unlikely they'll be around in time for, certainly for November, when the local government reorganisation response has got to be made on behalf of the county. It's unlikely they'll be around for the response to the response, if you know what that means, you know, the central government coming back with their view of the Stafford County Council submission. And it's far too late to be of any use to the budget setting. So all of that suggests that this is not going to be a solution for 26-27 or the immediate concerns. Now, Councillor Cooper, as your leader, has pointed to the local authorities that are using political assistance elsewhere. And also has suggested that the LGA are very much supportive. I did some trawling round, and there's a lot of districts and boroughs who operate with political assistance, mainly when they've got large contingents, they're fairly evenly split. Not so much when it's a large majority in one direction, and certainly not so many when it's county rather than district and borough. And they also seem to be more geographically towards the south. So there's a lot of London boroughs, for instance, which operate with political assistance. But having mentioned the LGA, again, I'm going to take you back now to prior to May and the changeover. The LGA are very good. They will do a peer challenge. They will allow you assistance their way. And it's perverse to call this a recruitment ban and then create new roles with unproven roles when considering which roles to be cut. The last thing I want to mention is that the value for money issue. How is the 142,000 going to achieve more savings? As earlier, it's too late to be of use for this budget. And politically, in boroughs and districts, generally in the south, they're engaged in targeted exercises. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greatrix. As the chairman, I just want to state that I welcome the opportunity to discuss this and the committee to discuss this issue. So I'm happy that you came here. And now on to Councillor Cooper, the leader of the council. I'd like to invite you for 5 minutes to talk about the issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Greatrix. Clearly doesn't understand the role. Laughable. It calls it a consultant. Actually, the name described by the position is called political advisor. In reality, it's a researcher, a lowly junior researcher. This idea, the concept of the research or the political advisor, as it is described, first came about with the Conservatives in 1989 when they thought it was a good idea to put these forward to local authorities. I do know that Staffordshire used to have one up until 2014. Tried to find out the details of that particular individual, but I was told they have disappeared off the system, which is interesting. But we do have some details of the individual who actually was here for 3 years advising, as it's called, and then went on to go and help the Conservatives, the Police and Crime Commissioner. So I'm not quite sure about this local idea of down south and down London. I've got a whole list of people. We'll leave them till the questions of councils where they do actually have them. All of them Conservative. And I'll give a couple of the flavour of the quotes, just as an idea of why these are quite good, as I said, as a researcher. Royal Borough of Greenwich. This is an amazing investment in local democracy and will ensure good governance. These roles are business critical. There's another one from Councillor Alistair McAllister many years ago in Brighton. Your ideology and affinity with the Conservative Party will win the confidence of those you work for. I have pages of these quotes, all Conservative, which is an interesting aspect to this. In fact of not knowing anything, I find that laughable as well. LGR is already done and dusted. We've already put forward our proposals, and the submission will go in November The forward plan, which is part of the MTVS and the financial aspect, that is already with the officers being scoped out and funded, along with Pete Shakespeare's looking at the numbers of that. Budget setting, we don't need any help for that. The researcher role really is somebody who can do those things where officers can't go and where we don't really have the time. So we have some elements within that with certain key areas. Tends to be more constitutional in a lot of things. So it'll add a lot of value to members here. But I'm happy to take questions and share with everybody some of these wonderful quotes and some wonderful councils, all of them conservative, think that this is a really good, positive addition to local government.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. We're now going to a deliberation. This is the opportunity for committee members to raise their questions to the leader or Councillor Greatrex about the issue, and let us begin. So, Councillor Bagley.
Thank you, Chair. One specific question I'd like more detail on, please, is the input and output that you may get from a political assistant that you would not get from existing officers. In a bit more detail, please.
That's a good question. Officers have to be objective. They can't engage in the political process. They can only give a neutral, balanced view. Whereas a political advisor, and this, let me just describe what this person is. They are an employee of the council. They actually work for Staffordshire County Council in this respect, part of the MADS team. They can give partial advice, you say, rather than impartial advice. So they can help us on the political aspect. They can help us with policy direction and constitutional issues.
Councillor Hall.
Okay, if we don't decide to take somebody on, what would be the consequences of that?
Well, the level of support and the figure was thrown out £142,000 and actually £10, £142,000 and £10, which is a really odd number. That would be for 2 positions, but in reality, that's not what we're asking for. That's a framework that is required by the legislation put forward. The reality, this is not even a level 10, which was pitched by the council. This is a level 7, which has been gone and monitored, and it's gone through the employment review. This person will be able to, as I say, do lots of sort of the data research, a lot of the time and effort stuff that we don't get a chance to. Think of it like a BBC researcher in some respects. You know, you have the presenter and the people actually put forward the programme, or in our case, the policies, and do all the politics front end. The researcher would be behind the scenes, looking at detail of policy and facts and figures and where we sort of fit nationally across the UK and with other political parties. So it's that detailed hard work behind. We could get around it, but that means we spend less time promoting Staffordshire County Council and the policies of reform. Councillor
Rose.
Thank you, Chair. I just don't really agree with the fact that this will be good value for money at the cost of, say, it is only just the one political advisor at £71,005. You say that your cabinet don't have the time to do the research and the number checking, but considering that the leader, yourself, are on almost £55,000 a year, and most of the cabinet positions are between £25,000 and £35,000, which is about above the average wage in this country. I don't understand how the cabinet and the leader don't have enough time to do these kind of fact-checkings and research skills. I'm also not very convinced at the overall financial scrutiny of this. Some would say I've been marking the homework, and I'm a bit disappointed in the fact that, you know, the 2 senior staff members cost £114,000 each. Political advisor at £70,000, a new cabinet position at £20,000, and £4.5 million from central government was downturned, which essentially means that Staffordshire County Council and its residents are almost £5 million worse off since this new leadership took over. The only credible savings announced by the County Council this year seem to have come from the previous administrations, such as the underspends in Q1 and initiatives such as streetlights being replaced with LED light bulbs.
Thank you for that. Or maybe you should get yourself a researcher, because clearly your figures are wrong. The figure, as I say, level 7, that's roughly about £27,000 roughly. There is a grading band within that, so nothing like the 72,000. So I'm not quite sure where you get the other figures as well, because if that one's not correct, then I doubt what the other ones are as well.
Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few questions, so happy to carry on or interrupt me. Councillor Cooper, so if we look at the total cost, assuming that 2 posts were put in, £142,000 and £142,010 actually, that's a lot of money to local residents, and we forget that because of the vast budget of this council. So firstly, could you let me know what is the measurable return on that investment for the taxpayer, and how in, let's say, 1 year, do you think we'll be able to measure the spend of money and whether that's been successful?
Thank you for the question there, Councillor Farrell. Yeah, again, the figures that you put around there, that's for the whole framework. That isn't the cost of doing this. We've already had the post measured and accrued by, I think it's Hayes Recruitment that the council used, but I will be corrected on that, through their job evaluation. It's a level 7. It's, I'd say, about £27,000. It's a junior staff member. So I think the value for money we get will be shown in the forward plan and the projects that we bring forward in the future, quite frankly.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm not entirely sure I got an answer there, but maybe we can come back and revisit it in a year if this post goes ahead. So why, as the leader of the council, do you think you can prioritise a political aid over the funding of equivalents, let's say money into highway staff or social care workers? Why was this decision made over appointing somebody else?
Excuse me, thank you for the question. Well, this person is an employee of the council. It's not a political appointment in that respect. They fall under the MADS department. They're there as a support role. As I said, I'll quote some examples of where the Conservatives in the past have said this is really good. I mean, this is Bedford. Political assistants can offer advice to councillors that local authority officers are prevented from providing. You know, we've got adverts from Calderdale Council. Quote, the Conservative group is seeking an assistant. The position will involve a mixture of home and office-based work, some evening in attendance at the meetings to help with research. You know, there's loads of them. There's examples all over the country. The Conservative Party nationally clearly think it's a good idea. The Conservative Party actually engaged this whole process in 1989 when they put forward this idea to local government. It's a cross-party thing. The Labour Party used and the Liberal Democrats. There may even be the odd Green, but I doubt it because there's none in administration, I don't think. But yeah, they are an active, positive part for local politics and helping support members.
Councillor Farrell.
Thank you for that. And I'm really pleased to hear that there are examples all over the country. And I'm sure there are examples of councils going bankrupt all over the country. So I'm not entirely sure why that's relevant to Staffordshire. So let's move on to the point that you just made there about it being a member of staff, not a political appointment. So assume the Conservatives are going to reject this and the controlling group reform are going to take on a political assistant. So what safeguards are in place to prevent this being cronyism or an internal appointment of a reform supporter? And then ultimately, who is this role accountable? Is it to the Reform Party or is it to the taxpayer?
Well, we're all ultimately responsible to the taxpayer. This person is an employee of Staffordshire County Council. In fact, it's only for a 12-month contract as well. So it's not a long-term employment. It's just for this particular case is the fact it's the contract specifies in the Hayes Recruitment that it's for 12 months only. So I'm more than happy to support it. I mean, the Royal Borough of Greenwich, I mean, they just paid their salary of £46,000, so I've been told, for their particular one, which, you know, we're saying £20,000 less for that, quite frankly, in helping support members deliver. At the end of the day, it's about quality of outcome, isn't it? It's about what can we deliver for the people of Staffordshire. I know the Conservatives like to concentrate on the small numbers, but the big numbers they seem to forget. I mean, you've got things like Commonsure, which they did their recruitment one. They were quite happy to sign contracts for a part-time bit, which was £30 million. Delivery of which they spent 11, but they're more interested in somebody on 27 grand. So let's stick with the big stuff and not the small stuff.
Councillor Rose, you wanted to add on the last point? I missed you, Ed, sorry.
No, that's fine. So why has the decision been made to have this political advisor on a band 7 rather than a lower band that would obviously cost less money and therefore much likely to offer a better value for money for taxpayers?
Good question. As I said, this person is an employee of Staffordshire County Council. We don't get involved in the recruitment or the banding aspect of that. That's done wholly away. It's independent. It's independent, I think, of many of the councillors. It's done through the Hayes system, and that's the originally they came up with a band 10. We said, no, that's wrong. We think there should be, it's because it's a research role. Although described as a political advisor, this is just basically a basic research role. We said, no, you have to lower this down. This is not quite right. And they've come back with the band 7.
Councillor Hall.
Yeah, it's a question actually for Councillor Greatorex. I mean, the headline figure of 142,000 is quite grabbing, but the reality is it appears it's going to be 35,000 over on a 12-month contract. And to be perfectly frank, I don't know how many people there are, 18 people here, some high-powered council executives as well. I mean, if you knew that was the case, would you have brought this objection to start with?
Well, the decision has been called in is to spend 142,000, so it's only today that we've heard that it might be a different figure. But the answer is yes, because the whole aspect is whether it's value for money. And I think Councillor Farrell's question and Councillor Rowe's question are questioning exactly whether there is any justification for it. If we could say, whatever the figure is, it's going to generate this amount of return, which would be bigger than the outlay, then it's value for money. But there isn't anything that we've had, apart from Councillor Cooper said it's future projects.
Well, I think with any research is you don't know what you don't know. I mean, you think you described that at the beginning, but it is the funny fact that the Conservatives in this very council used to have one up until 2014. They thought it was value for money then. For some reason, they decided to get rid of it. The framework is the framework. We don't decide the framework, the figure of 142. That's what the government sort of tells you that this framework is. We work under that particular bit. But the reality is we don't spend anything like that. It's a level 7. I'll be corrected on what the on-costs are on this. But the fractions are, we are looking to hundreds of millions of pounds of taxpayers' money. We need somebody to go around and do the granular, detailed research behind the scenes, go and do the deep dive digging that the officers can't do because it's politically restricted. And that feeds into better business decision-making by the rest of us, quite frankly.
Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. So thank you, Councillor Greatorex and Councillor Cooper, for your presentations. Just a couple of questions for now, Councillor Cooper. So firstly, actually, just a point of clarification, so I think it's important that we all know what we're talking about. You mentioned a £30 million recruitment contract. That's our framework agreement for temporary and contract recruitment, isn't it? So the council hasn't spent £30 million the council hasn't wasted £30 million on something. There's a framework agreement which enables £30 million of spend, of which the council has spent £11 million on temporary and contract recruitment, about 5% of our staffing budget. Unless you disagree with that, is just a point of clarification. Happy with that. So my question is around the timing of this and the need, because the report that was presented at the last Cabinet is relatively brief in terms of justification. So it mentions that political assistants are routinely employed around the country, no question about that at all. But then the purpose is about whether one is needed in Staffordshire or not. And if you take a look further down in the report, I think it is at point 11 on the report, it says these posts will be funded by the council but must be cost effective and justified. The posts must be will be assessed through a job evaluation exercise. Okay, so the job evaluation has been done. But why is this cost effective and justified? We go back up to the top to the brief information as to why it is justified, and it says local government is currently facing its biggest reorganisation in decades, so it's more important than ever than councillors are kept on up to date on national government policies. Okay, that's fine. Timings. This is being funded through the contingency fund outside of the MTFS. That fund is typically used for emergencies. I'll look at the Director of Finance. It is those unforeseen eventualities, isn't it, generally? It mentions in the report, I note this is it said this is a one-year contract, but it said costs will be built into the MTFS going forwards. So that seems to indicate that it might not just be a one-year thing. But assuming it is a one-year thing, we we take this as an emergency. We go ahead and recruit this person now on the basis that we need them for LGR. The recruitment process, I think it's fair to say, will take a month or two. So that takes us probably to about Christmas. We offer somebody a job. I'm assuming it will need to be someone with some experience, so they'll need to leave their current employment. Maybe they'll join us at the beginning of the new financial year. Decision on LGR is expected from government sometime in the summer. I'm not sure why this needs to be done now. I'm not sure why there's so little detail in the report as to what work they're actually going to be doing. Clearly they can't do anything on LGR, at least until next autumn. I don't understand the urgency in terms of doing this now through the contingency fund, why it can't be worked into the MTFS, why we can't have that full consideration of value for money. I fully accept that some councils feel it necessary to have these roles, but I'd like to see a full exposition of why this person's needed. It clearly isn't for LGR in the here and now, because the timings just don't work on that. So my ask is, why can this not be considered as part of the MTFS process and by all means brought back, but with a full value for money assessment and a full justification in terms of what the role will entail? Sorry that was long, but I don't want to ask you too many questions.
Thank you for that. Just to agree, yeah, the 30 million from common share, yeah, 11 million has already been spent. There's 19 to go, but that's a contract that was written. So that's a big number. Let's concentrate on the big numbers. More important, we're here looking at the very small numbers at level 7 and what that comes out. Why now? Well, you've got to start some point in time. There's always a reason not to do something. Let's find a positive reason to do something. There are lots of big things happening to this council that probably wouldn't happen to normal councils in normal terms of office. As you mentioned, there's the LGR, there's other bits and pieces that's coming in, changes in other aspects. This is a research role. This is not an officer role. This is not a political councillor role. This isn't anything else. This is merely, we're talking about a researcher. We've probably spent more time and effort employing everybody around this room and getting everybody into this building than the salary paid for this individual to come and do that small level of research, which again, we're sweating the small stuff all the time here rather than concentrate on the bigger picture. Things will crop over the next 12 months, quite frankly. We need to be in position to have that person there to make those investigations and help with that critical decision making now, quite frankly. You know, the problem is probably why the Tories are behind now is the fact that they were always playing catch-up. I think Kemi Badenoch this week was playing catch-up with reform. We're ahead of the game. This is another one to be ahead of the game, so therefore we think it's a good idea.
You want to respond, Councillor White?
Yeah, thank you very much. Hopefully it'll be the only other question I need to ask for now. So you mentioned political parties for a moment, so I'll mention that in response. I would be interested to hear what colleagues might say if we'd been doing this 12 months ago and how it might have played out in the election campaign. I think saying it's, you know, let's not sweat the small stuff. It's not important if we have this person just in case. I don't think that's something that any of us stood on a platform for saying that that was what we wanted to do with this council. I think we're all here to make sure that there's value for money, and we all know that you take one step down a particular route, it's easier to take others in the future. So that's why these points are important. I still come back to the fundamental question, and it really is it's my question, it's my point for supporting the call-in. I still don't understand the necessity to do this now using the contingency fund rather than working this into the MTFS with a full consideration of what this role will involve and, crucially, what's the value for money back to the organisation. I'll just labour the point slightly. In terms of advice to Cabinet regarding local government reorganisation, we have a Director of Transformation. We have an Assistant Director post for devolution. I don't know whether that's been filled yet or not, or whether it's subject to the recruitment freeze, but there is an Assistant Director post there for that. There is a transformation team, and we have PwC as consultants. I don't think we're lacking in advice on that topic. So if there's a broader point regarding the use of a political assistant, I'm entirely open to that. We've said as the Conservative group we don't feel that we need one. That's fine. I'm not trying to have a go at you. or your cabinet for saying we think that we would like to have a political assistant. What I don't see is the justification for it here. So my ask is, why can this not go back into that MTFS process and be considered? And what I'd be delighted to see is something that comes back to show how it will deliver value for money outcomes and savings for the organisation.
Wonderful, thank you for that. Because we want to do things now rather than kick the can down the road, quite frankly. We can kick the can down the road, put it into MTS, come back, bring a person in and out. For months on end, as you said, this process could go on. Reform is not about waiting till the end of the road. Let's just get on and do the thing now. We want to run this in a very business-like manner. We see this position as assisting in that to get the best value for money for the people of Staffordshire. We can make better business decisions, quite frankly. If you're in the private sector, you wouldn't wait month after month after month. If you wanted to fill a position to do a particular role, you'd get on and do it, quite frankly. So there is a need. We need to be ahead of the game. We need to make sure that we deliver the best value for people, and therefore I suggest we do it now.
Thank you. The point is, though, that's not the justification in the Cabinet report for doing this. So that fundamentally doesn't need a response, but fundamentally that's the point.
I mean, that's your opinion. I mean, it doesn't make it true. But, you know, we
It's
think
not
we should
there
do
in
it now,
black and
quite
white.
frankly.
Okay.
Councillor Rose, you wanted to add?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Really mirroring Councillor White's point of view is the fact that if you wanted this role immediately, which, again, fair enough, why was it not better justified in the report that you put in, saying that it was for LGR, and now you're saying that it's not for LGR, it's for research and financial kind of scrutiny? So I'm very confused of what exactly this research will be doing other than doing some form of research, but that's not really that detailed, because research could be anything. And in the report that you publicly stated, it was local government is currently facing the biggest reorganisation in decades. But the point of LGR, you know, as it's been mentioned, it's quite late for that process. So what exactly will this research role be doing in the current term?
Thank you for that. As I said before, you know, this is, it's not just, I mean, you focus on LGR all the time. The role is research across the whole of this council for the whole of the time of the 12-month period. It could be any topic, quite frankly, that we need to dive into that officers can't do because they're not allowed to do. They're politically restricted. There are sort of quotes from various Conservative councils in here that said, look, this particular person does this role because officers are unable to do that in the role. Not because they don't want to, it's because there are restrictions within their particular remit. So we say, okay, that's fine. We need to go and find this information as and when we need it. We need to do things now. I know that some people want to sort of sit back and just wait, but we're in a hurry to get things done, quite frankly. So my view is, if we make a decision, let's decide and move forward.
Mr. Bagley? Oh, so yeah, Councillor Rose.
This will be my final time speaking because it's quite clear that Councillor Cooper is just planning to beat around the bush on this issue. But I just don't think that in the report that you made, you have not justified what this will be doing. And even now, once we've been asking you these questions, you've still not been able to say what they will be doing other than you want to get on with the job. But what job do you want to get on with is my point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. And just to labour the point again, depends what comes up over the next 12 months. You know, forward planning and a lot of things. There are certain topics that we are dealing with now that we can get the research to look at. But with any organisation, there's plenty of roles that come up. This is a minor research role for an individual, and after the 12-month period, we'll review whether we think it's a good value for money or not, quite frankly. That's why it's been advertised as a 12-month position.
Councillor Bagley?
Thank you, Chair. I have a question each for Councillor Greatrix and Councillor Cooper, if that's okay. The first one, Councillor Greatrix, when you did your troll around the other councils that may or may not have used political advisors, apart from asking if they had them, did you get any feedback as to how useful they have been since they were appointed, if indeed they were appointed?
The interesting thing is that the majority of detail I found was new reform councils that are going for it. So they're in the same position of not having proven. Where I found it to be most productive, and Councillor Cooper's mentioned Greenwich, some of the London boroughs found it particularly useful where they've got that balance, as I mentioned, where they've got equal numbers of 2 or 3 parties, and they found it useful to equally represent small contingents rather than a large majority. I think the usefulness when you've got such a large majority, and as I mentioned earlier, you've got the number of people that you have as your own support in your own group. And as has been mentioned, you've got the assistance of officers. The usefulness is somewhat diminished. And we come back to value for money. If you can't demonstrate the usefulness, then it's not going to be as valuable as it might be in some of the councils that have seen it.
Thank you. And for Councillor Cooper, if I may, I just want to bring the benefits back to those that we seek to serve, which are ultimately the residents of Staffordshire County Council. I'd be interested to hear specific resident-focused benefits of these appointments, if possible, please.
Yeah, thank you for that. We come at this slightly differently, as I said. Being a newly elected reform administration, we come with a more business focus, quite frankly. If you look around all our cabinet members and our elected individuals, their backgrounds tend to come from a more commercial point of view. Therefore, this is seen purely as a commercial element. We think we can make better informed business decisions and hopefully have better outcomes for the people of Staffordshire. As with any organisation, sometimes you do need people to go do some primary research behind the scenes and then bring that back to officers or bring it back to councillors in our case. And that will then feed into the whole process of making the whole entity run better, quite frankly. You get better value for money, you get better outcomes, save the taxpayers money. I think the example was used when we had Alex Hunt, didn't we, as a political assistant. His minimum wage role was pointed out by the Conservatives of £13,407. I was told that if he stops one person child entering the system, the judicial system in terms of review, which on average costs about £20,000. So I'm told, I'll happily be fact checked on this. That one person on the loan saves £6,000 in one go. If you do that with a lifetime over this administration, that's many, many thousands of pounds. I see this in a similar vein as a researcher. It's somebody there to help us make better business decisions and ultimately save the taxpayers an awful lot of money.
Councillor Farrell, you have one more question?
Thank you. Yeah, as a result of what Councillor Cooper has said, I mean, he's referring to Councillor Hunt, who is a councillor, and you know, the role of us as councillors that we're elected to do is to scrutinise decisions and be the grey area between the black and the white. Officers are there to give us the legal position and often the factual position, and it's us as councillors to decide whether or not that's the right path for our residents. So going back to this political assistance appointments, 11 of us called the decision in. We've now heard from Councillor Cooper that it's not really a political assistant, it's a researcher on probably a third of the wage, of the maximum wage that was put in this report. So we've gone down from around about 70,000 role to a 27,000 role, according to Councillor Cooper anyway. So my confusion as a councillor is when this council makes big hires of a significant amounts of money, councillors themselves are involved in that hiring process. I've been on a panel to hire a member of staff. We've looked at the CVs and done the interviews. But if this decision isn't a high-grade appointment, like Councillor Cooper says, and it's a £27,000-ish salary for an assistant, then surely the hiring process will be done by officers, won't need to have any cabinet or councillor approval. So I'm just a bit confused, maybe Councillor Cooper can explain to me how this hiring process will take place, because I'm assuming, as the role is for a Reform Party political assistant, this person will have to have some sympathies towards Reform policies. But if the hiring process is going to subvert councillors and go directly to officers, how will Councillor Cooper have any control who this person is, and maybe they will end up hiring the wrong kind of person?
Thank you for that. Interesting way of looking at it, I suppose. Look, this person will be an employee of Staffordshire County Council, not Reform. The Conservatives have the option to hire a similar research assistant. I presume now they're not in administration, they don't need one, so that's why they're not bothering. This particular, any job role, the junior job roles are not scrutinised by senior officers in this council. It goes further down the chain in terms of that. The job has been evaluated by Hayes Recruitment. I think that's the Hayes system, which comes up with this particular job evaluation. They even write the job description, and they do through the council, they do the job advertising. Ultimately, they say they're part of MADS, and they come to me as the leader of this particular group. The Conservative can have one that goes to their particular group. So that's the process that the council engages in, and that's the process we shall follow, quite frankly. We're not involved in that.
Yes, you can.
Thank you. Thanks for that answer. So, if I've got this straight then, so it's an assistant role, and they're going to sit in the MADS department. Completely understand that. So, I'm a little bit confused as is the tail wagging the dog or the other way around? If you've got a decision you want to make, Councillor Cooper, for example, political assistance, would you speak to your assistant about it and say, please go and do the research and tell us the pros and cons? Or are they coming to you with ideas for the council, in which case that's slightly worrying because, you know, it's a politically run organisation, so it should come from yourself. And just to come back on your comment about the Conservatives, we're not choosing to say no to this political appointment because we're not in control, it's because we don't believe we need someone to tell us how to do the jobs we're elected to do.
Well, maybe if you go and ask your Conservative colleagues and other councils, they'll tell you the role, what it does. In terms of where it goes here, you know, as a MADS person, of course they come to me. That's the whole point of having a political assistant. They will report or come and have a conversation with myself. We will tell them exactly what we want them to look at, to where they want to go, where we need them to research, quite frankly. So that's how that particular thing works. As I say, this is a long-standing methodology, first implemented by, ironically, the Conservatives, and they seem to be the ones sort of arguing a case in terms of this. This particular council, as I'll repeat again, had one until 2014. So clearly they saw the value of how this worked, they saw how it operated, they saw, you know, the benefit that it brought to the council for a period of time. Maybe ask some of their former colleagues who are no longer elected councillors what they think, and they might be given a better steer.
Councillor Doherty.
Thank you. As a employee of Staffordshire County Council, will this political advisor be available to the opposition?
Thank you, that councillor. No, they can have their own, if they choose to. The whole framework, this whole £142,000 framework, which is quite frankly ridiculous, it's what somebody's come up with, central government, with this framework, that you have to put in place. Yeah, if they want one, they can have one. There's nothing stopping it. Other councils across the country have them, the Conservatives have them, the Labour Party have them, the Liberal Democrats have them, and if there is a Green somewhere in the council, in the country, I'm sure you might find one there. This is a very, very common aspect. And I can give you quote after quote with other Conservative councils saying how beneficial they are. It's a support role. As I said, in the framework document, it says political advisor. I've always thought that's a misleading role. It's just a research role. It's certainly not a consultant, as Councillor Greatrix. I mean, we're not talking PwC here. We are talking a level 7, as assessed, is to do some research. As I said, we probably spent more time arguing this and costing this council more money doing this, and they're paying for the role of the person to be the researcher.
Councillor Fattini.
Hi, yes. I've heard obviously a lot of the sort of negatives and people's opinions in the room on the role and the hiring of this said person, advisor. My question is, what benefits could the role actually bring? Like, is there some examples that you could share with me to sort of help my decision in this?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned the sort of the recruitment to go and find information regarding things like what we did on previous contracts as one example. There's lots of stuff outside you can find in the public domain. You can find it on Companies House. You can find it on the Contracts Finder. There's lots of other different ways we can go and do research on different entities, businesses, or even projects we want to bring forward. Maybe something in highways, maybe something in connectivity. You name it, whatever. We can send that person off and we can do some deep diving. We can find some information that's out there that maybe the officers can't use because of the political sensitive nature of that, and helps build into that decision-making process. I mean, ultimately, what this role does, it provides data, information, helps and support cabinet members and elected members to make better business decisions for the benefit of the people of Staffordshire.
Councillor White.
Thank you for bearing with me, Chair. So it is the final point. So there's a reason why this particular decision is here, and that's because this is the only decision of this nature that requires changes to the constitution of the council, because it is a unique role, blending that political with the officer role. So there are very good reasons why we are considering it, and it's the same reason why it's before full council on Thursday for a decision as it stands. So I think that's clear to everybody. I'm just going to come back as we close the discussion here to that point 11 on the Cabinet report under resource and value for money implications, which is that for these posts to be funded by the council, they must be cost effective and justified. And the fundamental point that I don't think has been addressed today, and which I accept could be addressed in the future with a more detailed Cabinet report and a better explanation as to what this person will do in their role and what objectives it will achieve, is that isn't in the report as presented to Cabinet. The justification is not there for this. I run a business. Councillor Farrell runs a business. It's always interesting, making statements about we come from business, we don't. Most Conservative councillors come from business backgrounds as well, and have done for many years. You make decisions swiftly in business where you need to, but it's where it's justified and it's going to affect the bottom line in a positive way. I come back to the fundamental point that under the terms of the report under which this decision was made, there isn't the justification for this role at present. Not saying that I'm against it for all time. The reason why we don't want to avail ourselves of this if the decision is made to have one as Conservatives is we don't feel that we need one. So we've considered that justification point and we've said, thank you very much. We have the experience and knowledge within our group to do our jobs properly. We don't need to spend taxpayers' money on that. It's absolutely fine if you bring a report that justifies this. For you to have one is perfectly permissible. You've got the right to do so. But the point is, and it's the point of the call-in, is it is not justified in the report as presented. And my ask, and when it comes to proposals for a vote, my ask would be that this goes back to Cabinet. You consider this in more detail, present a more detailed report, so that when full council votes on it, we can understand the actual reasons for this and the benefits that will accrue to the council.
Thank you for that. I respect your personal view and opinion. I personally don't share it, quite frankly. Look, at the end of the day, the framework is having to be brought in because when the Conservatives decided they didn't want this after 2014, I presume the framework just fell away, quite frankly. I'm not quite sure why. There's probably a very good reason within the council why the framework wasn't retained. As I said, the documents, I am told, get deleted after a period of time. I always find that quite amusing after I've requested to go and see the documents. I'm told they're no longer there. But there we have it. So I can't give you an answer to that until we go and do some research to go and find out why. Maybe the researcher could do that and come back and bring that to the council.
Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Cooper. I was just wondering, because the 27,000 figure is a lot more palatable to myself, but would there be like expenses? Would this researcher be constantly going to Westminster and racking up in an expense account?
Good question. It's a level 7, so whatever the figure is for level 7. No, there's no travelling allowance and there's no sort of additional expenditure. As I said, this whole frame, and I'm just quoting the level 7. I think, level 7 is what we've been told it is. It's gone through the Hayes recruitment system within the council. We have no input in that. Zero. Nothing. So that goes away, it goes off to the officers of the council. It comes back, they make their decision. As I said, the original recommendation was a level 10. He said, no, that's far too much. And whatever 7 is, whatever the council framework is within that, that's what we'll operate within. But there's definitely no remuneration for travel. There's no special expenses or anything else. It's just purely, as I said before, this is a research job. And then we've probably spent more money and time and effort doing this than would probably cost to do it, quite frankly.
Councillor Hall.
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, is to put a context on this. How much money does the council spend on consultants? I think Mr. Greatrick's raised consultants. And the second point of that is, I mean, I understand that to make good decisions, you need good information. So, I mean, I think that's quite clear. But do you think this will, well, would you have to buy some of these services in that this person will do? Would you, if you didn't employ them, would you have to buy those services in or to help you make good decisions?
Very good question. If we had to employ, say, a PwC or whatever, what do we just pay for LGR in terms of consultancy? Also, what did the previous administration commit for that? It's a big figure. If you buy in any form of outside view, opinion, and consultancy to do some basic research, it's an expensive job, quite frankly. It costs many, many thousands of pounds. This particular individual will become an employee of the council, and we can have them do research for us in a particular that we ask, and we ask them to go and do and justify and come back with the results far, far cheaper than if we went to the commercial sector, quite frankly. We'd have that person here available to do that. So, yeah, I think it's a cheap option.
Yeah, I don't know whether you or Mr. Shakespeare knows. How much did we actually spend on consultants, roughly, a year as a council?
So I don't have the exact figure for the current financial year. Consultants have been limited to specific projects, one of which has just been referenced. We do spend on interim agency staff, but I wouldn't put that under the banner of consultants, but happy to give you a figure offline.
Thank you. I've just been researching Staffordshire County Council's current staffing numbers, actually. We're at 4,702 staff. So it's probably quite offensive to our workforce that we can't find one person in that midst who can, as part of their current job, help out with this role. But as we've now discussed, it's gone down from a grade 10, I think, to a grade 7. I think this whole situation has completely changed. So I'd urge Councillor Cooper to go away, resubmit this report to Cabinet with a grade 7, because a grade 7 and a grade 10 are completely different roles. Because I feel like we're scrutinising something that maybe has been changed because of political pressure. I'm not sure why it's gone down from a grade 10 to a grade 7, but we've called in a decision which now doesn't appear to be the actual decision.
Thank you for that. I'm sorry you can't get your head around this. It's challenging, but, you know, the figures were banded at £142,000 and 10, whatever it was. Yeah, you know, when they did the Hayes thing, they said grade 10. We said no, we don't think it's that. You know, we said that it should be lower. Not the people that reviewed it here. Should it be lower? Went down to 7. In terms of internal recruitment, yeah, I think, look, the Conservatives have nothing to shout about. I think they put on one person every day net for 4 years in a row. So, of every year for 4 years, should I say. So that's gone up considerably if we want to look at the recruitment bit. Whether this particular element, you know, as I said, we spend a lot of time just looking at one element here. I personally think the cost of doing this is probably more prohibitive than the actual cost of hiring the researcher.
Councillor Fantini.
One question, I'm not sure whether you know the answer. The company that was used that gave you the band 10, what were they called again? Sorry.
It's internal to the council. It is Hayes, isn't it? Hayes is the company, H-A-Y-E-S. They do. It's their way they evaluate jobs. It went off to Sarah Getley, and she, as an officer, took this particular request away. They did the proper job evaluation. They did the value for money process. They looked at what the role was. They jumped through all the hoops. They came back with this proposal, and so, you know, this idea that this is a reform, you know, sort of driven in terms of cost or whatever. No, it's not. We've gone through the right due diligence here within the council. They've come up with that, as with any other role, quite frankly. I'm not quite sure I can repeat the same thing several times. We're not talking an executive here. We're not talking a senior officer. We're not talking the chief executive of the council. We are merely talking a researcher to help assist make better business decisions.
Oh, my question is who initially put Hayes into their position? Who, because coming to yourselves with the band 10, and then obviously you realising that that was too high, what makes me wonder now is how many other people have been given a job through Hayes that has been given a higher band.
And that's a whole different ball game, isn't it? We don't do the council's recruitment banding structure here at all. So I think that's something totally different. But yeah, it's their internal process of doing it, which is absolutely great. Fine, no problem. I'm more than happy to do that. As I said, officers do let me just put this straight. The officers do a fantastic job. I'm really supportive of the officers here. They do a fantastic, excellent job, but they can't do everything. They are restricted in certain things they can do. You can ask any officer if you wanted to do something political that said, no, I'm not allowed to do that as not part of my role. This particular person can go away and do things that would be that officers and employees of the council cannot normally do. Now, that is open to us. It's also open to the Conservatives. This particular Conservative group of people have decided they don't want to do that. There are many, many examples across the whole of the United Kingdom of councils, of county, borough, district, which actually have what they call political assistants, or researchers in many cases. It's a normal standard practice. It's the framework that was set up by the Conservatives. It's a proper government framework that we work within, and they give you this magical number of £142,010, which we think is crazy, but that's just the rules of the game. We have to play the rules of the game. We say, fair enough, we'll jump through the hoops and we'll take the headline hits or whatever, but at the end of the day, I want one recruitment person to help do some minor stuff.
Thank you. I just have a question about the value over time. So I assume having this person as a researcher in will create value over the years. So it will, in a sense, pay off. I assume that's what it's there for, really. And also, could you go into detail about like some of these restrictions that this person can actually do and not the officers, just for my knowledge?
Okay, political liaison is one of them. They can liaise with people in London online, I'd like to hasten to add, or with Reform in London, and sort of take our policies and then shape them around certain directions we want to go. Officers can't do that. They're not allowed to do that. They can help and assist us deliver our programme, but they cannot be integral into the deep dive of delivering of that. And that's quite right and proper, because officers have to remain politically neutral. It's as simple as that. We are saying this individual person can bridge that gap between the officer side of the organisation and the political side, which is the elected members. It's that link and bridge that can help make better business decisions. As I said, this appointment is a 12-month contract, and like with any 12-month contract, we'll look at it, and if we don't think it's any good, then fine, we'll bin it, as simple as that. But if we think in that period of time that we can deliver some value for money, I think it's a low-cost spend for a high potential output.
Councillor Hall, just one more question, then we can actually start discussing the outcome of this committee.
Yeah, just to really confirm them. So you could have paid them 71, but they're probably going to cost half of that. And we could have employed them on a full-time basis, and you've done it on a 12-month basis. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct. We're not going to spend £72,000 and employ somebody on a full-time basis. We're going to pay them a fraction of that and put them on a 12-month contract to see how we go.
Thank you. If there's any more questions, but we can start discussing the outcomes of this committee. And Councillor White, you have one more.
Yeah, it's just one more. I mean, it might be more of a plea than anything. So the leader mentioned changes in staffing figures since 2021, so an increase from about 4,700. I think it's important that we're always clear about what we're talking about, because it isn't relevant to this decision, but we're talking about large numbers of staff who were brought back in-house from external contracts, so contracts with Amy for household waste recycling and highways, people brought in when the local enterprise partnership was abolished, the regularising of contracts in our registration services. I think there is some new hiring for social workers and social care workers to help people return to home after illness. But it's important that we don't confuse the issues, and we might come back to some of these things in full council. I really hope we don't. But we need to talk about facts. The fact that is relevant to this appointment is that point 11 on the Cabinet paper, which is that the appointment of a political assistant must be demonstrated to be cost effective and justified. I come back to the point, That justification is not included in the Cabinet report. Cabinet should reconsider this and come back with a report that actually details what this role will do, that will justify it on the basis of cost effectiveness. If that is done, I've got no problem with this. As the leader said many times, many councils use these, but where it is justified and cost effective. So the simple ask, and when we come to proposals, it will be my ask, is that this committee votes to ask Cabinet to reconsider this as part of the MTFS process and bring back a proposal for political assistance, should they wish to do so, that details what the role will entail and how it meets those outcomes.
Thank you, Councillor White.
Let me just reference that. The only reason I referenced the employment is because Councillor Farrell did, so I was doing the response to that, and that was the only reason why I mentioned that. No doubt, full council, we will mention that. But if if Councillor Farrell wants to carry on that way, I'm more than happy to throw those numbers back at you.
Thank you for the discussion. Just remind the committee that we may choose three options. One of them, A, agree for the decision to be implemented as set out in the original decision notice. B, refer the matter onto the Cabinet with specific issues to the Cabinet to consider. And C, refer the matter to full council should the impact of the decision be deemed to have exceptional significance of public support. So if, I know Councillor White has said what he would like, but are there other members who want to give your beliefs on what you believe is the best option outcome of this committee? Councillor Fattini?
After hearing out everyone's obvious grievances and hearing out Councillor Cooper, I personally think that it seems like a good idea, especially due to previous councils and current councils wasting taxpayers' money frivolously, you know, with, for example, I may be flogging a dead horse with this one, driving lessons, PlayStations and other things that are completely will not and have not bettered the council as a whole, to be fair. And I think that this is something that could actually better the council and give us a smoother outcome to the running of it. And I think that anything that can make the council better, we should consider, you know. And maybe if they had had one previously, they wouldn't have made such bad decisions with how to spend the taxpayers' money.
Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to second Councillor White's proposal to refer the matter back to Cabinet, and I would suggest that Councillor Cooper is able to A, fully specify which band he will be on, how much this role will be paid, and B, with a full justification and explanation of what exactly the role will detail, because as it's been mentioned, on the original report it mentions LGR, but this is not what it sounds like it's going to be used for. So I would like a full financial layout and a full justification of what the role will detail.
Just because this has been moved and seconded now by Councillor Rose, we have to do a vote on this. So if committee members believe that this is a course of action, option B, refer the matter onto the Cabinet with specific issues for Cabinet to consider, can we have a vote on the committee?
3.
And who are those against?
9 against.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other members who would wish to understand, well, say which options they prefer? Is it option A, that we agree to the decision to be implemented as set in the original decision? Is there a proposer and a seconder? Councillor Bagley?
Yeah, I propose that we accept the proposal. Not very good English that, but having listened to all sides of the argument and taken everything into account, I think it is going to provide benefit to the council and therefore benefit to the residents that we seek to serve. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. Can we have a vote on this now? Do we accept that we agree the decision to be implemented as set out in the original decision notice? Yes?
It's 9.
And those against?
3.
Thank you. That is the option, the opinion of the committee now that the decision will be moved and agree that decision. We have agreed that the decision will be implemented as set out in the original decision notice. Thank you, and there's nothing in the exclusion of the public, so that's the end of the meeting, and if they have any questions, just come to me after. All right. Thank you.